There are people watching. There are people somewhat alarmed about what they're seeing in the heavens that sort of correspond with some of the things that are talked about in Revelation. Let's talk about those things.
Right. Thank you. When Jesus was being asked about the signs of his coming, his answer in one case was almost a matter of rebuking the people who were asking him. You didn't know the day of my visitation, almost as if you should know. We now know in retrospect that it was made very clear so many years after the decree for the rebuilding of the temple. So, consequently, if in the scriptures he tells us when his first coming is, why wouldn't he tell us the second coming? He gives us signs for the first coming, which most people ignored, over 200 of them. There are many, many signs for the second coming. Most prophecy experts focus on world events, but as you said, there are celestial events as well. In fact, one of the things Christ said is that the heavens would be shaken as a fig tree, an untimely fig tree, losing its figs as the winds shake it. So let's look toward the heaven from that regard. We should see precursor events in the heavens for his coming, just like we see precursor events right now here on earth, both religiously, politically, economically, and socially happening on earth. So let's turn our attention to the heavens. But before we do that, I want to talk about the governments of the world, because they see something that the general public typically does not see. In the last few years, the governments of the world have been collecting and storing seeds, and they're doing it at neck-breaking speeds. Massive seed vaults are appearing all over the planet. The most famous one was in Norway, where they took an ice island 600 feet off the ocean floor, dug right into granite, and have a massive seed vault, basically in cold storage. Now, and it's protected, by the way, with armed guards 24/7. Now, everybody takes notice of that, but they don't realize that there are now over 1,000 seed vaults just in the last 5 years that were created by governments of the world. Why the rush to create them now? Second thing we're seeing is that governments of the world, as you mentioned earlier, Russia, United States, and various other countries are building underground, not bunkers, but cities, small cities out of rock under the ground. For what purpose? NORAD announced just this year that they were transporting, at an incredible cost to the taxpayer, a lot of high-tech military equipment into the Cheyenne Mountains to, and I quote, to protect it from the possibility of a natural EMP pulse. What could be natural? So we'll get into what could cause a natural EMP pulse. In other words, they're preparing for something.
An electromagnetic pulse,
Yes.
of such proportions that it actually could kill things. It certainly could wipe out electronics and electrical equipment.
Right.
Turning us back to the Stone Age, basically. You lose your electricity, you've just lost everything we have in society today. Everything from sea phones to toasters and all stops in between, and suddenly quit if there's an electromagnetic pulse. And you're saying, well, they're putting these things far underground to protect them from that perceived happening. Now, as you were talking, I was thinking maybe they're doing this to prepare for a nuclear war, going underground to protect themselves from radiation. But their reasoning seems to be more on a natural basis than a man-made basis.
And I actually think when they released that article saying that they were doing this to preserve electronic equipment from a natural EMP pulse source, I think it actually was a mistake. I don't believe they intended to tell the public that. One of our greatest fears in wartime is, we've all heard the scenario of an EMP, a nuclear weapon being detonated above the United States, shutting down our power grid. Effectively, that is not actually accurate. The EMP pulse from a nuclear explosion will shut down a 500-mile radius. You need several of them for the power grid of the United States. It would still shut us down, essentially, but it wouldn't shut down the whole planet. A natural EMP pulse would shut down the entire planet. In fact, depending on how strong it would be, it would not only shut down all the power grids on the planet, kill all communications, destroy the alternators in your car, just blow them up, so that nothing moves that's motorized. The satellites in orbit would be rendered ineffective. All of our communications would be down, essentially. And it would be decades before we'd bring it back up. Now, if this event happens, what is the scenario through the rest of Revelation would actually talk about events that do not have electricity or technology associated with them. And we find it very interesting that in the end, with the Battle of Armageddon, they arrive on horses and chariots, and basically by landmass, there's no missiles, there's no airplanes flying. They all converge in the Valley of Megiddo. You know, they're coming the old-fashioned way. 2,000 years ago, the armies are converging to do battle.
Well, you know, you have in Revelation, Revelation 6:15, the leaders of the earth are taking emergency action. It says, in the kings of the earth, and the great men, the rich men, the chief captains, the mighty men, every bondman, every freeman, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Well, you could just put in there Cheyenne Mountain for one place, because that's what they're doing. I mean, this is a matter of record. But then comes this verse, immediately following it, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? So some people will actually know that this is a judgment of God. Probably most people won't. But some may remember what they were hearing from Christians, and they may say, uh-oh, what the Christians were saying was actually true.